am Thakshila Kariyawasam, a PhD student from Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jayewardenepura. Presenting sustainable housing for middle-income society in Sri Lanka. Introducing, starting with the background. Developing countries have the largest and fastest growing construction markets today, according to surveys. Housing construction also takes a major part in this development, which creates deforestation, environmental devastation, pollution, and major energy consumption, which needs to address in order to save our planet and living beings. Sri Lanka is a developing country currently facing a difficult time because of the country's ongoing financial and political problems. Middle income class is expanding considering income to expenditure ratio. That means ability to spend has gone down of many people. Middle class who are professionals, technicians, government employees, small entrepreneurs who want fair living standards in terms of housing, education, job career expectations, vehicle ownerships, health facilities, and recreational facilities within constrained financial resources become the most vulnerable segment of the society. Housing being the major asset in most households. The cost-to-income ratio of housing is known as housing affordability. Housing affordability, when we talk about the housing affordability and housing crisis, low-income housing is often referred to as affordable housing or social housing, which mostly develop with government support, whereas middle-income housing mostly handled by private sector developers. Because government regulations are always changing and local council approval typically takes a long time, developers find it challenging to put the sustainable housing concept into practice. Therefore, a simple, effective, flexible, and well-structured regulatory framework shall be introduced to overcome stakeholder interest in sustainable middle-income housing developments. Considerations for sustainability in housing developments consist affordability, economical benefits, equity, and energy efficiency in middle-income housing. Housing prices rises as a result of rising demand and tight supply, which hurts the most vulnerable segment of the middle-class population. Government policies should take into account these advancements in economically sound and sustainable principles. Affordability for buying and maintaining a home while receiving benefits for a better quality of life through healthier living and lower utility costs. Talking about the objectives of the study, to research Sri Lanka's current regulatory environment, to research sustainable regulatory structures on a local and global level with developed countries, to research the influences on sustainable dimensions in middle-income housing, which we will talk in next slides, to create the legal basis for affordable sustainable housing in Sri Lanka, the policy side, to support the effects that middle-income sustainable housing will have on the regulatory structures. Sustainable development means the development that fulfills the requirements of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Therefore, the sustainable housing development has 4 dimensions. Housing must be economically viable, socially acceptable, technically feasible, and environmentally compatible. And the middle income in Sri Lanka is the local middle class is defined as the expenditure less than $2 to $10 per day. the method of the study is, the goal of this study is to investigate the requirement for middle-class urban sustainable housing. This study also intends to create a basic regulatory framework to control affordable sustainable housing. The data collection would be, the primary data would be gathered from the literature as well as from a number of national and international resources regarding the characteristics and aspects of sustainable housing. Secondary data will be gathered through questionnaire, interviews, observations with the relevant experts, including architects, project managers, consultants, contractors, and users of middle-income housing. Testing and this gathered data would be tested again and again until we collect the right data and analyze them to develop the regulatory framework, the basic regulatory framework for the future studies as well. For the results, policies and regulations are key for the knowledge for developments and constructions. People encroach on the environment to satisfy their needs, paying no attention to the scarce resources available. Therefore, people need guidance for housing developments that are related to sustainable development, including planning procedures, regulations, and strategies. The majority of housing complexes are either unaffordable or fail to meet economic advantages, social well-being, or environmental issues in order to satisfy sustainable elements, according to an analysis of the country's housing projects and existing literature. As a result, it's very crucial to handle this situation without technically professional and proficient, skilled, and competent people. It is important that we concentrate on the regulatory framework that can be adopted to sustainable middle-income housing developments in metropolitan areas in order to fulfill the sustainable development goals. So we have identified three main stakeholder categories as users, industry professionals, and developers, as we discussed. In conclusion, this study emphasizes aspects of sustainable housing as well as characteristics of the urban middle class in order to develop effective and flexible regulatory framework to adapt to the sustainable aspects of housing in urban context. The regulatory framework should be context related and adapt to the changing requirements. There are both qualitative and quantitative ways for evaluating and measuring the framework's sustainable indicators. It should be applied to both new and existing housing developments as well. Here we are laying the foundation for future studies that must adopt a more comprehensive system-based regulatory strategy for sustainable housing construction. This will be an initiator for the structure to develop the betterment of middle-class people to make their life upgraded while contributing more to country's development rather than leaving country for better life. These are some examples for the horizontal and vertical sustainability that other developed countries are trying to adopt to their systems. Thank you very much. I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Udavatta for guiding me to study this research area as well as being part of this. Professor Padma Veerakorn and Professor Nishani Kramarachi for the immense support on the study. Finally, the Center for Real Estate Studies, Department of Estate Management and Valuation for giving me this opportunity to present my ideas in an international conference. Thank you very much.